I'm Clara Vance, 38 years old, and 3 weeks ago I returned from my grandmother's funeral to find my designer wardrobe, photo albums, and wedding gifts dumped across the lawn, while my husband stood on the porch with his mistress, divorce papers in hand and a smile on his face. He thought he had won. What he didn't know was that I had a secret house, a financial war chest, and 3 years' worth of evidence ready to bring down everything he'd built on lies and control. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about strategy, survival, and reclaiming your power. Before I dive into how the perfect doctor's wife dismantled the man who underestimated her, let me know where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever felt underestimated by someone who thought they owned your story. This one's for every woman who's been told to stay quiet. From the outside, Marcus and I had the perfect marriage. He was a highly successful orthopedic surgeon at Unity Medical Center, pulling in 7 figures annually, lauded by his peers, adored by his patients. I was the supportive wife, the quiet force behind his glittering facade. We met during a campus fundraiser at State University when I was just 20. Marcus, with his charming smile and ambitious eyes, swept me off my feet. I was studying finance, dreaming of building my own legacy, while he was pre-med. Those early years, they were magical. We'd burn the midnight oil together, me quizzing him for anatomy exams, him bringing me coffee during my late-night study sessions. We talked about building an empire side by side as equal partners. He'd kiss my forehead and say, "You're investing in our future, Clara. When I'm established, you'll never have to worry about money again." I graduated with honors and landed a promising position at Summit Wealth Advisors. My career took off. By 26, I was managing portfolios for high-net-worth clients, and my boss was mentoring me for partnership. Then Marcus completed his residency and joined an exclusive private practice. That's when everything began to shift. "The wife of Dr. Thorne can't be working 60-hour weeks," he insisted one evening, his tone laced with a new kind of authority. "My colleagues' wives manage our social calendar. It reflects poorly on me when you're unavailable." At first, I pushed back. "I've worked too hard to just abandon my career." He'd wave a dismissive hand. "It's not abandoning it, darling. It's evolving. Besides, we don't need your income anymore." Gradually, I reduced my hours, then became a consultant, eventually working with only a handful of select clients. Meanwhile, our social obligations exploded. Charity galas, hospital fundraisers, country club events. I became the polished accessory on Marcus's arm. The control seeped into every aspect of my life. Marcus insisted on managing all our finances, claiming I was too emotional about money, despite my professional expertise. He scrutinized my purchases, questioning every receipt, while casually dropping thousands on new golf equipment without a word. My wardrobe had to meet his unspoken standards. "That dress makes you look dowdy, Clara. My colleagues will think I can't provide for you." My friends started disappearing. "Jessica's too negative," he'd say. "Ryan is clearly hitting on you." My college roommate Chloe, who was going through a tough divorce, he dismissed as a bad influence with her divorce talk. One by one, my support system evaporated. I didn't even see it happening until I was completely isolated. Marcus had constructed a beautiful cage, and I, unknowingly, had helped him build it. The first real crack in the facade appeared 4 years ago. A text message notification lit up his phone while he was in the shower. The sender was Scarlett Reed, and the preview read, "Can't wait to feel your hands on me again." My stomach dropped. I told myself it was innocent. Scarlett was a nurse practitioner at his practice. They worked closely. It could be about a patient case. But then came the unexplained expenses, weekend medical conferences that couldn't be verified, late nights at the hospital that didn't align with the surgery schedule I could view online. The faint scent of unfamiliar perfume, lipstick on his collar that wasn't my shade, hotel receipts from the Azure Grand, just 15 minutes from Scarlett's condo. Marcus grew increasingly critical. My cooking was bland. I had gained weight. I wasn't interesting enough at dinner parties. When I suggested couples therapy, he just laughed. "You're being paranoid, Clara. This is why doctors never marry other doctors. Medical knowledge makes people hypochondriacs about their relationships too. Aren't?" His mother, Lydia Thorne, was my harshest critic and a constant shadow, a former beauty queen who had never worked a day in her life. She lived 20 minutes away and appeared unannounced at our home regularly. "Clara, dear, that casserole is a bit dry, isn't it?" Marcus always loved my recipe with heavy cream, or, those pants aren't flattering on your figure, darling. Marcus works so hard. He deserves to come home to a wife who makes an effort. Marcus never defended me. She means well, he'd say. She just wants what's best for us. His sister, Chloe Thorne, was different. During a rare moment alone at a family barbecue 3 years ago, she cornered me by the pool house. "He's doing it again," she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "Doing what?" I asked. "The same thing he did to Sarah." I froze. "Who's Sarah?" Chloe's eyes widened. "He never told you? His ex-wife, before you. They were married for 2 years during his early med school days. She paid his tuition, then he discarded her with nothing." Before she could continue, Marcus appeared, putting a possessive arm around my waist. Chloe retreated, and he steered me away. "What was that about?" I asked. "Nothing important. Chloe always tries to stir up drama." That night, I lay awake beside him, studying his sleeping face. Who had I really married? And what was he capable of? Despite these burgeoning doubts, we maintained our perfect image. At the Willow Creek Country Club, we were the golden couple. At hospital functions, doctors' wives sought my advice on decorators and caterers. At community events, we donated generously and posed for photos. Behind my practiced smile, I was cataloging every piece of evidence, calculating the risks. Something in Marcus's demeanor had shifted. He was securing his position and assets. I discovered a prenuptial agreement I'd signed years ago had been quietly modified with a postnuptial agreement during a flurry of documents he had me sign when we refinanced our house. My suspicions grew when he began suggesting I didn't need my own financial accounts. "Why not consolidate everything, Clara? It's more efficient." I smiled and nodded, playing the role of trusting wife while silently recognizing the trap being set. Marcus was preparing to leave me with nothing, and he believed I was too naive to see it coming. The definitive moment that transformed suspicion into action came 3 years ago. While reviewing our tax returns, Marcus always had me sign without reading. I noticed discrepancies. Significant income was missing, and there were deductions for property taxes on addresses I didn't recognize. "Just investment properties through my medical corporation," he explained dismissively. "The accountant handles all that. Nothing for you to worry about." But I did worry. I began taking photos of financial documents with my phone while he was at work. I created password-protected folders and stored them in multiple cloud accounts. I needed proof of our marital assets before they mysteriously disappeared. Fate intervened 2 months later at Nordstrom. I was picking up a suit Marcus had altered when a woman approached me in the parking lot. "You're Clara Vance, aren't you?" she asked. She was attractive, early 40s, with weary eyes. "Yes, do I know you?" "No, but I know you. I'm Sarah Jenkins, Marcus's first wife." My heart pounded as I remembered Chloe's warning. "I debated approaching you for years," Sarah continued. "But seeing you today, I can't stay silent anymore. Has he started hiding money yet?" We spoke for 2 hours at a nearby coffee shop. Sarah had supported Marcus through his first 2 years of medical school, working 2 jobs while he studied. Once he secured major medical school loans, he filed for divorce, claiming they had grown apart. The loans were in his name alone. Their small starter home had been sold, with Marcus taking the proceeds as repayment for his career sacrifices. He had left her with nothing but debt. "He's charming and brilliant," Sarah said, stirring her untouched coffee. "But he sees relationships as transactions. When your value to him diminishes, or he finds a better option, he'll discard you without remorse." That evening, I searched for divorce attorneys specializing in high-asset cases and found Elena Rossi. Her website featured testimonials from clients who had faced similar situations. I made an appointment, paying the consultation fee in cash. Elena's office was discreet, tucked inside a downtown high-rise. She listened without judgment as I outlined my suspicions. "You're smarter than most who come to me," she said when I finished. "They wait until they're locked out of the house with frozen credit cards. If you're right about your husband, we need to move carefully. Gathering evidence without alerting him is critical." She provided a checklist: document all assets, secure personal paperwork, establish independent credit, open separate accounts, and build a financial cushion. Most importantly, she warned, maintain the facade. The element of surprise is your only advantage against someone like your husband. Once he knows you're preparing to leave, he'll move quickly to cut off resources. That night, I created a secure email account and began my double life. I contacted my grandmother, Clara Vance, who had always maintained fierce financial independence despite my grandfather's immense wealth. She wired me $20,000 from her personal account, money my grandfather had never known about. "Every woman needs a fuck-off fund," she told me bluntly. "I've had one for 60 years. Never needed it, thank God, but it gave me the security to speak my mind." I opened accounts at a bank Marcus never used, using my office address for correspondence. I diverted small amounts from my personal inheritance that had remained in my name, converting them to cash, and then depositing them in my new accounts. My financial background proved invaluable. I traced Marcus's hidden investments through public record searches and careful monitoring of our mail. I discovered offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. A vacation property in Aspen was registered to his mother, Lydia, but paid for with marital funds. A yacht registered to his medical practice, Orion Healthcare Ventures, was actually our personal boat, effectively hidden from marital assets. The most significant discovery was a shell company called Orion Healthcare Ventures that owned several commercial properties. Marcus had been diverting substantial income into this entity for years. According to our tax returns, this company didn't even exist. 14 months into my investigation, I had mapped an impressive network of hidden assets totaling over $12 million. Money I legally had claim to as a spouse, in our equitable distribution state. The next phase required more boldness. Using an anonymous LLC called Havenwood Estate Acquisitions, I purchased a beautiful craftsman-style home in Riverbend, 30 miles from our primary residence. The 4-bedroom house sat on a wooded lot with a stream running through the backyard, exactly the type of home I had always wanted, but Marcus had dismissed as too rustic. I furnished it slowly, claiming to donate old furniture to charity when actually moving it to my secret house. I installed a state-of-the-art security system. I planted a garden. I created a home office. I was building the life Marcus had prevented me from having. To explain my frequent absences, I told Marcus I was volunteering at a women's financial literacy program. He approved, seeing it as another social credential. Good for appearances, he noted, never asking for details. I befriended my new neighbors under the guise of being the property manager for an out-of-state owner. Leslie and Mark Johnson next door invited me to neighborhood barbecues. Grace Peterson across the street shared gardening tips. They became the authentic community I'd been missing. Professionally, I was rebuilding too. I maintained a small client base from my former firm, working remotely without Marcus's knowledge. I rebranded as an independent financial consultant specializing in women's financial independence. The irony wasn't lost on me. Living this double life took an emotional toll. Some nights, I lay beside Marcus, wondering if I had manufactured problems in an otherwise successful marriage. Then he would make another cutting remark, or I would discover another financial deception, and my resolve would strengthen. I documented everything meticulously. Elena reviewed my evidence monthly, helping me build what she called an airtight case. "When do we file?" I asked during our third meeting. "We don't," she replied. "We wait for him to make the first move. Let him think it's his idea. Let him believe you're unprepared. The temporary satisfaction of filing first isn't worth the strategic advantage of catching him off guard." So I waited, maintaining my role as the perfect doctor's wife, while secretly preparing for the inevitable betrayal. I wasn't just building a financial escape plan. I was creating an entirely new life that Marcus knew nothing about. The call came on a rainy Tuesday evening in April. Marcus was attending a medical conference in Chicago, which I knew was actually a weekend with Scarlett at the Four Seasons, based on the credit card alerts I still received. I was alone when the hospice nurse called about my grandmother, Evelyn. "The doctors give her 2 to 3 weeks," the nurse explained gently. "She's asking for you." Evelyn had raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12. She was more mother than grandmother, and the thought of her dying alone was unbearable. When Marcus returned, tanned despite the supposed conference being indoors, I told him about Evelyn's condition. "I need to go to her today," I said. He frowned, checking his calendar on his phone. "We have the hospital gala next weekend. The chief of surgery specifically asked about you." "My grandmother is dying, Marcus." "Hospitals are depressing places, Clara. She probably won't even know you're there. Just send flowers and money for the nurses to give her extra attention. Or..." I stared at him, seeing with perfect clarity the man I had married. "I'm going. I'll be back for the gala if possible." His jaw tightened. This is why your career stalled, you know. Emotional decisions overriding logical ones. I packed that night. As I folded clothes into my suitcase, Marcus leaned against the doorframe. If you insist on going, at least make it quick, a week maximum. And call Lydia to handle the gala arrangements if you're not back. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Before leaving, I secured copies of our most recent financial statements in my hidden floor safe and transferred an additional $50,000 to my secret account just in case. Evelyn lived in a small lakeside community in northern Michigan. The hospice facility overlooked the water, and her room was filled with spring light when I arrived. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her once imposing frame diminished, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. "Well, you finally escaped him," she said instead of hello, reaching for my hand. I kissed her papery cheek. "It's only temporary. I'll go back after." She waved away my words. "Sit down and tell me the truth for once. Is he still controlling every aspect of your life? Are you still pretending to be happy?" For 15 years, I had maintained the fiction of my perfect marriage to everyone, including Evelyn. Something about her directness, combined with the knowledge that our time was limited, broke through my facade. I told her everything: Marcus's infidelity, the financial deception, my secret preparations, the house in Riverbend, the evidence I had gathered. Once I started, I couldn't stop. The words poured out like water through a broken dam. Evelyn listened without interruption, occasionally nodding. When I finished, she surprised me by laughing. "You are my granddaughter after all." I was beginning to wonder. She reached for her water glass, and I helped her drink through the straw. "I was married to your grandfather for 52 years, she continued. "Most people thought we had the perfect marriage. The truth? He cheated on me with his secretary for 3 decades. I knew after the first year. Why did you stay? It was a different time. Divorce wasn't an option for women like me, but I wasn't stupid." She smiled slightly. "I opened my own accounts, invested my household allowance, bought property in my maiden name. By our 30th anniversary, I had more money than he did, all hidden away." She instructed me to open the drawer of her bedside table. Inside was a leather jewelry case. "The diamonds he gave me for anniversaries and birthdays," she explained as I lifted the lid, "plus what I bought myself with my secret funds. Have them appraised when you get home. They're worth millions. I've already changed my will to bypass the trust your grandfather established. Everything comes directly to you." I stared at the glittering collection. "I can't take these." "You can, and you will. Consider it your grandmother's contribution to your fuck-off fund." Her language had grown more colorful as her condition worsened. "But Clara, listen to me. The money, the house, the evidence, they're just tools. The strength to walk away, that has to come from inside you." Over the next 2 weeks, as Evelyn's condition deteriorated, we had the conversations we should have had years earlier. She told me about her own regrets. "I was financially independent but emotionally imprisoned," she admitted. "I stayed too long out of pride and appearances. I should have left and found real happiness." She made me promise to look through a trunk in her attic before I left. There are journals. Read them, learn from my mistakes. The journals revealed a brilliant woman who had sublimated her own dreams to support my grandfather's career and ego. Despite her secret financial empire, she had lived a life of emotional compromise. In her final days, Evelyn drifted in and out of lucidity. During one clear moment, she gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Sometimes the strongest thing is walking away," she whispered. "Don't wait until it's too late to live your real life." She died peacefully 3 days later, with me holding her hand. I stayed for the funeral, then spent 2 days sorting through her house. In the attic trunk beneath the journals, I found more jewelry, bearer bonds, and documentation for properties I hadn't known she owned. During this time, Marcus's calls became increasingly infrequent and cold. He asked perfunctory questions about the funeral arrangements, but was more concerned about whether I would return for the hospital gala. "Lydia has stepped in, but it's not the same," he complained. "Dr. Winters specifically mentioned your absence." On my final day in Michigan, I couldn't reach Marcus at all. His phone went straight to voicemail, and he didn't respond to texts. Uneasy, I called our neighbor Rachel under the pretense of checking on a package delivery. "Oh, everything seems fine over there," she said hesitantly. "There's been a black SUV in the driveway for the past couple days. I assumed you knew." An hour later, she texted a photo of the vehicle with a caption. Just FYI, didn't want to say on the phone, but thought you should know. I recognized the car immediately. It belonged to Scarlett. I booked a flight home for the following morning, a day earlier than planned. During the journey, a strange calm settled over me. For 3 years, I had been preparing for this moment. Now it had arrived. And instead of fear or anger, I felt only readiness. The taxi dropped me at the end of our circular driveway. From a distance, everything looked normal. Then I saw it. Piles of clothing, books, and personal items scattered across our immaculate lawn. My belongings tossed out like garbage. The locks had been changed. I stood motionless, staring at the surreal scene before me. My clothes were trampled into the manicured grass. Books I'd collected over decades lay splayed open, pages fluttering in the breeze. Photo albums, their contents partially spilled, revealed glimpses of happier times, now tarnished by betrayal. Even my grandmother's antique clock, a wedding gift, had been carelessly tossed aside, its glass face shattered. As I took a step forward, the front door opened. Marcus emerged, his arm around a slender blonde woman I recognized immediately, Scarlett Reed, his nurse practitioner. She was wearing my favorite silk robe. "Ah, you're back," Marcus said, his tone casual, as if commenting on the weather. "Your timing is inconvenient as usual." I found my voice. "What is this?" "This," he gestured broadly at the lawn, "is the natural conclusion to our arrangement. You abandoned your responsibilities when I needed you most. I've simply expedited the inevitable." Scarlett at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, tugging at the robe's belt. "I was burying my grandmother," I said quietly. Marcus shrugged. "And I've been busy too. The divorce papers are somewhere in that pile. Consider yourself served." He smiled, the same charming smile that had once made my heart race. "Don't worry about the postnuptial agreement. My lawyer assures me it's ironclad. You'll get your clothing allowance for the year, which should be sufficient until you find alternative arrangements." From behind them, a third figure appeared, Lydia, Marcus's mother. She surveyed the scene with undisguised satisfaction. "I always told Marcus you weren't suitable," she said, her perfectly lined lips barely moving. "A woman who abandons her husband for nearly 3 weeks has no right to call herself a wife." I noticed movement behind curtains in neighboring houses. Our community of doctors, lawyers, and executives thrived on scandal, as long as it happened to someone else. Now I was providing their entertainment. "I'll need my passport and birth certificate," I said calmly. "Also, the blue jewelry box from my grandmother." Marcus laughed. "Already claimed as marital property for appraisal. After all, anything acquired during our marriage is subject to division. Though in your case, division means 0. He checked his watch. "You have 30 minutes to collect what you can before I call the police to report trespassing." I maintained my composure, though my hands trembled slightly as I began gathering essential documents from the scattered piles. Years of planning had prepared me for this moment, but the public humiliation still stung. As I sorted through my belongings, Marcus watched from the porch, occasionally whispering to Scarlett or accepting a drink from his mother. They were enjoying the spectacle, the powerful doctor dispensing justice to his ungrateful wife. I found the divorce papers wedged inside my favorite novel. The filing date was 4 days ago, while I was attending my grandmother's funeral. I folded them neatly into my purse without reading further. My phone vibrated with a text from Elena. "Joint accounts emptied 20 minutes ago. $347,021 transferred to his private account. Documented." Another piece in the puzzle of Marcus's betrayal. I continued methodically collecting my most important possessions: legal documents, irreplaceable photos, family heirlooms that had escaped Lydia's greedy assessment. A silver SUV pulled up to the curb, and Chloe, Marcus's sister, emerged. Unlike the others, she approached me directly, kneeling to help gather scattered photos. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "He's been planning this for weeks. I tried to warn you." Marcus's voice boomed from the porch. "Chloe, family supports family. Get up here immediately." She squeezed my hand before retreating to the house, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my marriage. When my suitcases were filled with what I could salvage, I called an Uber. Marcus smirked, clearly believing he had left me homeless and destitute. Little did he know I was heading to a storage facility where I would secure these items before moving into my fully furnished secret home. "Time's up," Marcus announced, phone in hand. Shall I call the police now, or would you prefer to leave with some dignity intact? I looked up at the trio on the porch, Marcus, Scarlett, and Lydia, and felt a moment of absolute clarity. They thought this was the end of my story. In reality, it was just the beginning. No need for the police, I replied, my voice steady. I have everything I came for. As my Uber arrived, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Marcus, you might want to check your hospital email. The board of directors sent an interesting message this morning, something about an internal audit of physician billing practices. His smug expression faltered slightly. The first crack in his perfect facade. I've been exactly where you are now, watching this unfold, and wondering how someone survives such a public betrayal. The moment I stood on that lawn, I felt so alone. If you've ever experienced family betrayal or watched someone you love be mistreated, you know that hollow feeling. I'd love to hear in the comments if you've witnessed similar family drama and how it was resolved. This story continues with unexpected twists that I'm still processing to this day. From the storage facility, I called Elena, who immediately arranged to meet me at her office. This is actually perfect, she said, reviewing the divorce filing. He's so confident in his postnuptial agreement that he's been sloppy. Very sloppy. She showed me the filing documents. Marcus had falsified financial disclosures, omitting the properties and accounts I had discovered. He had also claimed I had abandoned the marriage, using my grandmother's illness as evidence of my selfish priorities. This is fraud upon the court, Elena explained, her eyes gleaming. Judges hate being lied to even more than they hate spouses hiding assets. We formulated our immediate response strategy. Elena would file an emergency motion for temporary support and exclusive use of the marital home based on improper eviction. She would also notify the court of the hidden assets, requesting an immediate freeze. Don't expect to get back into the house, she warned. That's just a strategic move to unsettle him. The real goal is to secure your financial position while we prepare our comprehensive response. I nodded, feeling strangely detached. The Willow Creek house had never truly been my home, just another showcase for Marcus's success. Where will you stay tonight? Elena asked, concern evident in her voice. I smiled for the first time that day. I have arrangements. I checked into the Azure Grand Hotel, the same hotel where Marcus conducted his affairs, for one night while I finalized preparations at my secret house. Using cash and a credit card Marcus knew nothing about, I ordered room service and took a long bath, allowing myself to process the day's events. Marcus called repeatedly that evening, increasingly angry that I wasn't begging to return home. I let the calls go to voicemail, listening to his messages escalate from smug satisfaction to confused irritation. Where are you staying? Lydia says none of your friends have heard from you. The bank called about unusual activity on your personal account. What have you been doing? My lawyer says you've retained Elena Rossi. That's an expensive mistake you can't afford. His final message was telling, You're embarrassing yourself, Clara. Come home and we can discuss a more dignified separation. This rebellious phase is beneath you. He still believed I would break, that without his financial support, I would have no choice but to accept his terms. This fundamental misunderstanding of who I had become would be his downfall. The next morning, I met with the security consultant at my Riverbend house. We upgraded the system to include motion sensors, cameras with night vision, and silent alarms connected directly to the local police. I wasn't taking any chances with Marcus's temper once he discovered my deception. By afternoon, I had officially moved into my secret home. As I unpacked the few salvaged belongings among the carefully curated furnishings I had selected over the past 3 years, I felt a strange sense of homecoming. This house represented the woman I had become in secret, strong, independent, and prepared. I stood in the kitchen, running my hand along the butcher block countertop I had installed myself, and made a decision. I would not be defined by Marcus's betrayal. This was not just a hiding place. It was where I would begin my real life. My first morning in the Riverbend house dawned with unexpected peace. For the first time in 15 years, I woke without anxiety about meeting Marcus's expectations. No perfectly pressed outfit to select. No elaborate breakfast to prepare. No carefully applied makeup to ensure I was presentable. Instead, I sat on my back deck with coffee, watching sunlight filter through the trees while planning my next moves. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Emergency hearing scheduled for Friday. Stay unreachable until then. I spent that day activating what I called my emergence plan. I officially launched Vance Financial Strategies, the consulting business I had been building quietly for years. My website went live, featuring my credentials and specialized services for women seeking financial independence. I activated professional social media accounts that had been created months earlier but kept private until now. Within hours, former colleagues were sharing my announcement, and 3 potential clients had reached out for consultations. The foundation I had laid in secret was already bearing fruit. Meanwhile, Marcus was unraveling. My neighbor Rachel texted that police had visited our Willow Creek house, responding to a domestic disturbance call. Later, she reported Marcus had been seen throwing things into his car at midnight, clearly intoxicated. Lydia began calling mutual friends, spinning a story that I had suffered a nervous breakdown following my grandmother's death. Several concerned messages appeared on my phone, offering support for my mental health crisis. I didn't respond to any of them. On the 3rd day, Chloe reached out through a newly created email account. "He's searching everywhere for you. Mother hired PIs. Be careful, can we meet?" I suggested a coffee shop 2 towns over, taking precautions to ensure I wasn't followed. Chloe arrived wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, glancing nervously around the cafe. "He's obsessed with finding you," she said without preamble. "He can't understand how you've disappeared. No credit card trails, no hotel registrations, no apartment leases. The private investigator is checking homeless shelters now." I sipped my latte calmly. "And why are you telling me this?" Chloe removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes reddened from crying. "Because I know what he's capable of. What they're both capable of." She shared details I hadn't known. How Marcus and Lydia had systematically alienated their father until he signed over business interests to Marcus before his death. How they had manipulated Chloe's trust fund, leaving her financially dependent on them. How Marcus had destroyed the career of a colleague who questioned his billing practices. "They won't stop," she warned. "They can't stand losing control. And Mother has been shredding documents every night." This information was valuable, but I remained cautious. "Why help me now? You've watched his behavior for years." Chloe stared into her untouched coffee. "Because at the funeral, you were kind to Evelyn, even though she couldn't do anything for you anymore. That's when I realized what family should actually look like." She slid a USB drive across the table. Tax returns from Mother's computer. Emails between them about hiding assets. Password to his private cloud storage. I took it without comment, unsure whether to trust this apparent alliance, but willing to verify the information. That evening, Kevin Park, the forensic accountant Elena had recommended, confirmed the documents were genuine and damning. Marcus had been systematically committing insurance fraud, billing for procedures never performed, and upcoding routine visits. Most shocking was evidence that Lydia, who managed billing for his practice, was a willing accomplice. "This goes beyond divorce proceedings," Kevin warned. "This is criminal activity, Medicare fraud, insurance fraud, tax evasion." I instructed him to prepare a comprehensive report for Elena, but hold off on any external reporting. This information was a nuclear option I wasn't ready to deploy. The following week brought my first court appearance. I arrived at the courthouse through a service entrance to avoid Marcus, who was predictably waiting in the main lobby with his attorney and mother. Inside the courtroom, his confidence visibly faltered when he saw me seated beside Elena, professionally dressed and composed. He had expected a broken woman begging for mercy, not a polished professional ready for battle. Judge Harriet Coleman, known for her no-nonsense approach to high-asset divorces, reviewed our emergency motions with narrowed eyes. "Dr. Thorne," she addressed Marcus directly, "these financial disclosures appear incomplete compared to evidence presented by Mrs. Vance's counsel. Care to explain the discrepancies?" Marcus's attorney, Walter Simmons, intervened smoothly. "Your Honor, my client maintains these are premarital assets mistakenly identified as marital property." Judge Coleman turned to me. "And Mrs. Vance, how did you become aware of these alleged hidden assets?" Elena answered for me. "Through Mrs. Vance's professional work in financial planning, Your Honor. She documented these discoveries contemporaneously over several years, anticipating her husband's attempt to conceal marital property. The judge ordered an immediate freeze on all disputed assets and appointed a special master to conduct a forensic accounting. She also granted me temporary support, despite Marcus's protests about the postnuptial agreement. Preliminary review suggests this agreement may have been signed under duress or without full financial disclosure, Judge Coleman noted. Until determined valid, standard support calculations apply. As we left the courtroom, Marcus grabbed my arm. "Where the hell are you living?" he hissed. "And where did you get money for Rossi? She charges $500 an hour." I removed his hand calmly. "Perhaps you should have asked those questions before throwing my belongings on the lawn." His face contorted with rage. "This isn't over. You have no idea what you're up against." Actually," I replied quietly, "I believe you're the one facing surprises." That evening, Scarlett Reed contacted me through Instagram, requesting a meeting. Against Elena's advice, I agreed to see her at a public restaurant with security cameras. She arrived looking nothing like the confident woman who had worn my robe on the porch. Her eyes were shadowed, and she flinched at sudden movements. "He's not who I thought he was," she began, voice barely above a whisper. "When we started our relationship, he was charming, attentive, generous. He said you were cold, career-obsessed, uninterested in his needs." I waited silently as she gathered courage to continue. "After you left, everything changed. He monitors my phone, questions my every movement. Last night, he threw a glass against the wall because dinner was overcooked." She pushed up her sleeve, revealing finger-shaped bruises. I recognized the pattern. My mother had similar marks from my father. Despite everything, I felt a surge of pity. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I found something you should see." She slid a phone across the table. "His second phone, the one even Lydia doesn't know about. The passcode is your birthday." The contents were worse than I imagined. Text messages coordinating prescription drug sales, photos of patient records with insurance information, a shadow accounting system showing cash payments for medications diverted from Unity Medical Center. "He's been selling prescription painkillers," Scarlett explained, "using his access to write prescriptions for patients who don't exist, then selling the medications through someone at the hospital." This was beyond financial fraud. This was criminal activity that endangered patients and violated every ethical standard of medicine. "Why give this to me?" I asked. "You could take it to the police yourself." Scarlett's eyes filled with tears. "He told me what happened to the last nurse who reported concerns about him. She lost her license, her reputation, everything. He said he would do the same to me." She stood to leave. "I'm moving back to Oregon tomorrow. My sister bought the ticket. Please wait a few days before using any of this." I copied the evidence before returning the phone, promising to protect her as my source. Though I had no sympathy for her role in destroying my marriage, I understood she, too, had been manipulated by a master predator. Over the next month, I executed my plan methodically. I canceled all joint credit cards, removed myself from our shared insurance policies, and formally resigned from club memberships Marcus valued for social networking. Each cancellation was a small piece of a larger strategy to dismantle the life he had constructed. The effect was both immediate and satisfying. Marcus was denied entry to the Willow Creek Country Club after I canceled our family membership, creating a scene witnessed by his most important clients. Our joint donor status at the hospital's annual gala was revoked after I withdrew my contribution, leaving him scrambling to maintain appearances. Most significantly, I submitted an anonymous tip to Unity Medical Center's compliance office regarding billing irregularities in Marcus's practice. This triggered an internal investigation that quickly expanded to include prescription monitoring. Marcus's carefully constructed world was crumbling, and he had no idea that I was the architect of its destruction. Each move was calculated, legal, and devastating. Throughout this period, I maintained my new life in Riverbend. My business, Vance Financial Strategies, grew steadily as word spread among women seeking financial advice during major life transitions. I joined a local chamber of commerce and volunteered at community events. I planted a vegetable garden and adopted a rescue dog named Charlie. I was building genuine connections based on who I truly was, not who my husband expected me to be. The private investigator Marcus hired eventually discovered my Riverbend address through vehicle registration records. 6 weeks after I moved in, security cameras captured him examining the property's perimeter at dusk. He returned after midnight, attempting to disable a camera before trying to force open a back door. The silent alarm notified police, who arrived to find Marcus drunkenly demanding entry to his wife's hideout. The resulting arrest for attempted breaking and entering made local headlines. Prominent surgeon detained at ex-wife's residence. Elena immediately filed for a restraining order, which was granted based on the security footage and police report. Marcus was barred from coming within 500 feet of me or my property. His professional life was similarly imploding. Unity Medical Center placed him on administrative leave, pending the investigation into billing practices. Several patients transferred to other providers after news reports raised questions about his conduct. In a desperate countermove, Marcus filed an emergency motion claiming I had stolen confidential medical information and was conducting a smear campaign to damage his reputation. The judge dismissed his motion, noting dryly that anonymous compliance tips were protected by whistleblower statutes, regardless of their source. Lydia, perhaps sensing the shifting tide, attempted a different approach. She appeared unannounced in my new office in downtown Riverbend, dressed immaculately and bearing what appeared to be an olive branch. "This has gotten out of hand," she began, setting her designer purse on my desk without invitation. "Marcus is under tremendous stress. His blood pressure is concerning. Perhaps we can reach an amicable solution." I gestured to a chair. "I'm listening." "A quick, quiet divorce, equal division of known assets. You drop all further claims and investigations. Marcus maintains his practice and reputation." I smiled politely. "And why would I agree to that when evidence suggests substantial hidden assets and potential criminal activity?" Lydia's composed facade cracked slightly. "Those are serious accusations without merit. Be careful about making defamatory statements." "I have documentation regarding Orion Healthcare Ventures," I replied calmly. "The offshore accounts, the Aspen property purchased with diverted patient payments, your role in managing these transactions." Her face paled. "You're bluffing." I opened my desk drawer and removed a thick folder. "Financial records tend to leave trails, Lydia, especially when someone has been documenting them for years." She stood abruptly. "You'll regret this approach. Family protects family." "Yes," I agreed. That's exactly what Chloe finally understood. The mention of her daughter's betrayal hit home. Lydia gathered her purse with trembling hands. "You've turned my own daughter against me with your lies." Chloe made her own choices after seeing the truth, just as I did. As she reached the door, I added, "The investigators will likely want to speak with you about the billing records soon. I suggest consulting your own attorney rather than sharing Marcus's." 2 days later, Chloe called to report that Lydia had suffered what appeared to be a panic attack and was hospitalized briefly. Marcus blamed me directly, leaving threatening voicemails that Elena promptly forwarded to the district attorney as violations of the restraining order. "He's self-destructing," Elena observed during our weekly strategy meeting. "This is when he's most dangerous. Stay vigilant." She was right. Despite his mounting legal troubles, Marcus seemed fixated on punishing me rather than salvaging his career and freedom. When financial pressure failed to break me, he resorted to attacking my reputation. Former friends reported he was spreading rumors about mental instability, drug use, even infidelity on my part. I maintained my silence, focusing instead on building my new life and business. The contrast between his increasingly erratic behavior and my calm professionalism spoke volumes to those watching the divorce unfold. 6 months after finding my belongings on the lawn, I had achieved what once seemed impossible: complete independence from Marcus and the life he had constructed around us. My business was thriving, my home was secure, and the divorce proceedings were advancing in my favor. The trap I had set so carefully was closing, and Marcus had walked into it willingly, blind to the possibility that the wife he had underestimated for 15 years had outmaneuvered him at every turn. The discovery hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday morning in October. Elena and I arrived early, reviewing our strategy one final time before Marcus and his legal team entered the courtroom. "Remember," she whispered, "let him underestimate you. His arrogance is our advantage." Marcus appeared noticeably diminished since our last court appearance. His designer suit hung loosely on his frame, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. He was accompanied by a new attorney. Walter Simmons had withdrawn from the case, citing professional differences with his client. Judge Coleman called the hearing to order, addressing the preliminary findings of the forensic accountant appointed by the court. The special master's report indicates significant discrepancies between Dr. Thorne's financial disclosures and documented assets, she noted, reviewing the report. Particularly troubling are offshore accounts established during the marriage, but omitted from disclosure forms. Marcus's new attorney, Jeffrey Barnes, attempted to minimize these findings. Your Honor, these accounts were established as part of my client's medical corporation's asset protection strategy. Mrs. Vance was aware of this standard practice. I maintained a neutral expression as Elena responded. Mrs. Vance has provided contemporaneous documentation, proving she discovered these accounts through her own investigation, contrary to counsel's assertion. Furthermore, the accounts contain commingled funds from clearly marital sources. The judge turned to Marcus. Dr. Thorne, did you disclose these accounts during the execution of the postnuptial agreement your attorney has presented as binding? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I believe my financial disclosures were comprehensive at that time. That's not what I asked, Judge Coleman said sharply. Did you specifically disclose the Cayman accounts and the Aspen property held in your mother's name? Those were established after the agreement was signed, yet you used marital funds to establish them, according to bank transfers documented by the special master. The judge removed her glasses. I'm ruling the postnuptial agreement invalid due to material non-disclosure of assets. Standard equitable distribution will apply to all marital assets, including those discovered during investigation but not initially disclosed. Marcus's face flushed with anger as the judge continued. Additionally, I'm deeply concerned about evidence suggesting documents were backdated to appear as premarital assets. Mr. Barnes, please advise your client about potential perjury charges for submitting falsified documentation to this court. This was the first major victory in our legal battle, but I knew Marcus wouldn't surrender easily. As we left the courtroom, he approached, despite the restraining order, his voice low and menacing. You think you've won? I built everything we had. You were nothing before me, and you'll be nothing when this is over. Elena stepped between us. Back away, Dr. Thorne. You're violating a court order. Tell your client to drop this vindictive crusade, he snarled, or I'll make sure she regrets every minute of it. Court officers intervened, escorting Marcus away while Elena documented the interaction for another restraining order violation. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor at my Riverbend home. Chloe arrived looking agitated, glancing repeatedly over her shoulder as she hurried to my door. He knows about the evidence you've gathered, she blurted once inside. Not just the financial stuff, the prescription fraud, the billing schemes, all of it. He and Mother are destroying records. They've wiped computers, shredded documents. Marcus said he'd solve the Clara problem permanently if the medical board investigation proceeds. Her hands trembled as she accepted the tea I offered. I've never seen him like this. He's unraveling, Mother too. They're talking about liquidating everything and leaving the country. I contacted Elena immediately, who advised accelerating our timeline. We need to get this evidence to the authorities now, she said. The threat changes everything. The next morning, Elena and I met with Assistant District Attorney James Chen, presenting our complete documentation of Marcus's financial crimes, insurance fraud, and prescription drug scheme. ADA Chen reviewed the evidence with increasing concern. This goes well beyond divorce proceedings, he confirmed. We're looking at multiple felonies, wire fraud, insurance fraud, controlled substance violations, potentially money laundering. He closed the folder. I'll need formal statements from both of you and will likely require testimony before a grand jury. I hesitated. There's a nurse practitioner who provided key evidence regarding the prescription scheme. She's relocated out of fear of retaliation. Can she be protected? We can arrange for remote testimony and witness protection if necessary, Chen assured me. The same applies to you, Mrs. Vance. These cases can turn dangerous quickly. Within 48 hours, search warrants were executed at Marcus's medical practice, our former home, and Lydia's residence. The local news carried footage of investigators removing boxes of records and computer equipment. Marcus, attempting to leave the scene, shouted at reporters that he was the victim of a vindictive ex-wife's fabrications. Lydia was more strategic, giving a composed statement describing me as a troubled woman creating fantasies to explain her abandonment of a successful marriage. She portrayed herself as the concerned mother-in-law who had only wanted family harmony. Their public relations campaign collapsed the following day when Unity Medical Center announced its internal investigation had found substantial evidence of improper billing practices and prescription irregularities in Marcus's department. His medical privileges were suspended pending further review. The medical board followed with its own statement. announcing an emergency suspension of Marcus's license while investigating allegations of gross negligence and professional misconduct. As these professional consequences mounted, Marcus's focus on me intensified. Despite the restraining order, he appeared at my office building, attempting to confront me in the parking garage until security intervened. He called repeatedly from blocked numbers, leaving increasingly incoherent messages. He contacted mutual friends, seeking information about my movements and activities. When these efforts failed, he escalated to a new level of desperation. During a scheduled deposition related to the divorce, Marcus's attorney requested a brief recess. When proceedings resumed, Marcus made a startling proposal. "I'm prepared to offer a settlement," he announced, sliding a document across the table. $3 million, the Willow Creek house, and my half of all joint accounts. In exchange, Mrs. Vance will withdraw all allegations regarding financial impropriety and make no further statements to investigators. Elena and I exchanged glances before she responded. "Are you offering to pay my client to obstruct justice in an ongoing criminal investigation?" His attorney quickly intervened. "That's not what Dr. Thorne meant. He is simply seeking to resolve the civil matter expeditiously. By explicitly linking a financial settlement to my client's cooperation with authorities," Elena countered, "I'm obligated to report this offer to the district attorney's office." Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "You've destroyed everything I built. 15 years of marriage, and this is how you repay my generosity? I made you who you are." In that moment, I finally spoke directly to the man who had controlled my life for 15 years. "No, Marcus. You tried to erase who I was, the woman you married, the one with dreams, ambitions, and integrity. You nearly succeeded." I gathered my papers calmly. "I don't want your money. I want justice. For myself and for everyone else you've harmed through your arrogance and greed." The settlement offer, as Elena predicted, only strengthened the criminal case against Marcus. The district attorney interpreted it as consciousness of guilt and potential witness tampering. A grand jury was convened, and indictments followed. 37 counts, including fraud, controlled substance violations, and conspiracy. Lydia was named as co-conspirator in the financial crimes. The evidence Chloe had provided proved crucial, documenting Lydia's active role in concealing assets and falsifying records. She faced her own charges of conspiracy and accessory after the fact. The arrest made national news. "Prominent surgeon and mother charged in massive fraud scheme," read the headlines. Photos showed Marcus and Lydia being led from their homes in handcuffs, their expressions a mixture of shock and fury. Chloe, though devastated by her family's public disgrace, stood by her decision to cooperate with authorities. "They taught me that loyalty means protecting family secrets at any cost," she told me during a quiet dinner at my home. "I finally realized true loyalty means standing for truth, even when it hurts." Marcus and Lydia were released on bail with electronic monitoring and surrender of their passports. Their assets were frozen pending trial, leaving them dependent on loans from increasingly distant friends for legal representation. The criminal proceedings overshadowed our divorce case, which Judge Coleman expedited given the circumstances. The final settlement reflected the full accounting of marital assets, including those Marcus had attempted to hide. Beyond financial considerations, the court acknowledged the emotional and career damage I had suffered during the marriage. The systematic undermining of Mrs. Vance's professional opportunities and personal autonomy constitutes a form of economic abuse, Judge Coleman noted in her ruling. This court considers such factors when determining equitable distribution in cases where one spouse has demonstrably suppressed the other's earning capacity and independence. As the criminal case progressed, former patients and colleagues came forward with additional allegations against Marcus. Stories emerged of bullying, sexual harassment, and medical negligence covered up through intimidation. The prestigious practice he had built was revealed as a toxic environment ruled by fear and manipulation. Marcus, watching his reputation crumble along with his freedom, made one final desperate attempt to regain control. Despite the restraining order and bail conditions prohibiting contact, he appeared at my home at 3 a.m, triggering security alarms and camera recordings. Police arrived to find him attempting to disable the security system, clearly intoxicated and carrying what they described as burglary tools. The violation of both bail conditions and the restraining order resulted in his bail being revoked. He was held in custody pending trial. Lydia, suddenly facing the consequences of her actions without Marcus's protection, suffered what her attorneys described as a stress-induced cardiac event. Though not life-threatening, it delayed court proceedings and garnered her some public sympathy until records emerged showing she had exaggerated symptoms to avoid court appearances in the past. As Marcus awaited trial in county jail and Lydia recovered under house arrest, I found myself at the center of unexpected public attention. Women's groups contacted me about speaking on financial abuse. Legal organizations requested presentations on documenting hidden assets. Financial publications sought interviews about protecting oneself within marriage. The story of how a controlled, isolated wife had methodically gathered evidence and built an escape plan while maintaining a perfect facade resonated widely. I agreed to selected speaking engagements, hoping my experience might help others recognize warning signs I had missed for too long. Through it all, I maintained the privacy of my daily life in Riverbend. My home remained my sanctuary. My business continued to grow, now specializing in helping women achieve financial independence during major life transitions. I developed a particular expertise in assisting those leaving controlling or abusive relationships. The woman Marcus had tried to diminish had not only survived, but thrived. The revenge he had feared was simply the natural consequence of his own actions, exposed to light. On a crisp autumn morning, almost 2 years after finding my belongings scattered across our lawn, I sat in the federal courthouse awaiting the final resolution of Marcus's criminal case. The trial had been delayed multiple times through procedural maneuvers, but eventually, facing overwhelming evidence and the prospect of decades in prison, Marcus had agreed to a plea deal. The courtroom was nearly empty. The media attention had long since moved to newer scandals. Elena sat beside me, her presence a comfort after the long journey we had navigated together. Chloe occupied a row behind us, torn between family loyalty and her commitment to truth. Marcus entered in a prison jumpsuit, handcuffed and escorted by officers. He had lost weight, and his once immaculate appearance was now haggard. He barely glanced in my direction as he took his place beside his attorney. Judge Martin Reeves reviewed the terms of the plea agreement, guilty pleas to 12 counts of fraud and controlled substance violations in exchange for dismissed charges against Lydia, who had been diagnosed with early-stage dementia during proceedings. Before I accept this plea, Judge Reeves addressed Marcus directly. I want to ensure you understand its implications. You will surrender your medical license permanently. You will serve a minimum of 8 years in federal prison. You will make restitution to insurance companies, patients, and Unity Medical Center exceeding $4 million. Is this your understanding of the agreement? Marcus nodded wearily. Yes, Your Honor. And you enter this plea voluntarily, without coercion? Yes, Your Honor. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Vance, as the initial reporting party in this case, you have the right to make a victim impact statement if you wish. I approached the podium, meeting Marcus's eyes directly for the first time in months. The prepared statement in my hands suddenly seemed inadequate for the moment. 15 years ago, I married a man I believed was my partner, I began. I supported his dreams, sacrificed my own ambitions, and trusted him with my future. In return, he systematically isolated me, controlled our finances, and prepared to discard me when I was no longer useful. Marcus stared at the table before him as I continued. The financial crimes that bring us here today reflect a pattern of behavior that extended beyond business practices into our marriage. The same entitlement that led Dr. Thorne to defraud insurance companies led him to defraud me of years I can never recover. I paused, gathering my thoughts. I don't speak today seeking vengeance. I've moved beyond that need. I speak for the patients who trusted him, the colleagues he intimidated, and the women like me who may still be trapped in golden cages, wondering if freedom is possible. Marcus finally looked up, his expression unreadable. I hope the time ahead provides opportunity for reflection and genuine change, I concluded. While our marriage died on that lawn 2 years ago, I've discovered that endings can be beginnings in disguise. I've rebuilt my life on a foundation of truth rather than appearances. I wish the same possibility for everyone damaged by these actions, including Dr. Thorne himself. Judge Reeves thanked me before formally accepting the plea and pronouncing sentence. As Marcus was led away, he paused briefly beside me. I never thought you were capable of this, he said quietly. That was always your mistake, I replied. Outside the courthouse, Chloe approached hesitantly. Mother's Care Facility allows visitors on Wednesdays and Sundays. She asks about you sometimes in her clearer moments. I squeezed her hand. Perhaps someday. For now, I'm grateful for your courage through all of this. Our unlikely friendship had been an unexpected gift from this ordeal. The daughter of the woman who had tried to destroy me had become one of my strongest supporters. In the months that followed, I focused on transforming my experience into something meaningful. With part of my divorce settlement, I established the Evelyn Vance Foundation, named for my grandmother, providing resources for women trapped in financially controlling relationships. The foundation offered emergency grants, legal assistance, and financial literacy education. We developed specific programs for women married to high-earning professionals, addressing the unique challenges of escaping what appeared to be privileged lives. My secret house in Riverbend became my permanent home, no longer a hiding place, but a true reflection of my tastes and priorities. I expanded the garden, adding a memorial section with my grandmother's favorite roses and a small plaque bearing her wisdom. Sometimes the strongest thing is walking away. Professional success followed as well. Vance Financial Strategies grew to include 3 additional advisors specializing in divorce financial planning. I authored a book on financial autonomy within marriage that became required reading in several university courses on domestic abuse. Scarlett Reed contacted me after relocating to Oregon, expressing gratitude for protecting her identity during the investigation. She had returned to school to become a nurse educator, determined to teach ethical practices to future healthcare providers. "I'll always regret my role in hurting you," she wrote, "but I'm trying to create something positive from that mistake, just as you have." Lydia's condition deteriorated more rapidly than expected, perhaps accelerated by stress and the loss of the controlling role she had played for decades. Chloe became her primary caregiver, navigating the painful irony of tending to a mother who had caused so much damage. "She talks about your wedding sometimes," Chloe shared during one of our monthly dinners. "She actually seems proud of how beautiful everything was. The past is becoming more real to her than the present." I found I could think of Lydia with something approaching pity rather than anger. A woman who had built her identity around her son's success and status, willing to sacrifice integrity and eventually freedom to maintain that illusion. 6 months after his sentencing, I received a letter from Marcus. The prison chaplain had encouraged inmates to make amends as part of their rehabilitation. His words seemed genuine, if not entirely self-aware. "I still don't understand how everything unraveled so completely. The life I built, the reputation I earned, the future I planned, all gone. I blamed you for destroying it all. But in moments of honesty, I recognize I destroyed it myself. Decision by decision, compromise by compromise. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not even sure I'm sorry for the right things yet. But I wanted you to know I'm trying to understand where everything went wrong. Perhaps that's a start." I didn't respond immediately, unsure if communication served any purpose for either of us. Eventually, I sent a simple note acknowledging his letter and wishing him well in his journey toward understanding. Some chapters need to be closed gently rather than slammed shut. 3 years after finding my belongings on our lawn, I stood at the podium of a women's shelter fundraiser, sharing my story publicly for the first time. The audience included survivors, advocates, and professionals working to address domestic abuse in all its forms. "Financial abuse leaves no visible bruises," I explained. "Its power lies in isolation and dependency. The gilded cage may look beautiful from the outside, but it remains a cage." I described the warning signs I had missed: the gradual limiting of my career, the isolation from friends and family, the exclusive control of financial decisions despite my expertise in the field. "Freedom begins with preparation," I continued. For me, that meant years of documenting, saving, and creating a parallel life while maintaining a perfect facade. Not everyone has that luxury of time or resources, which is why organizations like this shelter are essential. After my presentation, women approached to share their own stories, some still trapped, others recently escaped. Many years into rebuilding lives shattered by control and manipulation. A young woman clutching a worn notebook waited until the others had departed. "I've been documenting everything for 8 months," she whispered. "My husband doesn't know. I've created an escape fund. Hearing your story makes me believe I can actually leave." In that moment, I recognized the full circle of my journey, from the controlled doctor's wife to a woman helping others find their own paths to freedom. The revenge Marcus had feared wasn't the public exposure of his crimes or the loss of his medical license. It was simply my reclamation of the woman I was always meant to be. My grandmother Evelyn had shown me that financial independence was the foundation of personal autonomy. Through her lessons and her legacy, I had found the strength to walk away and rebuild. Now I was passing that wisdom forward, creating a network of support for women still finding their way out of beautiful prisons. Each time I returned to my Riverbend home, the house I had prepared in secret and now enjoyed in freedom, I felt profound gratitude. The sprawling garden, the home office where I advised clients, the quiet reading nook overlooking the stream, all represented choices made for myself rather than to maintain appearances or please others. The perfect doctor's wife had disappeared, replaced by a woman comfortable with imperfection and authenticity. The facade had cracked, then shattered completely, revealing something far more valuable than the polished image Marcus had demanded. On the 5th anniversary of my grandmother's death, I visited her grave with fresh flowers and news of the foundation's achievements. Standing beside the simple headstone, I felt her presence in the wisdom that had guided me through the darkest times. "You are right," I said aloud. "Sometimes the strongest thing is walking away. And sometimes what appears to be an ending is actually the beginning of everything that matters." I've shared my story today, not just to describe what happened, but to connect with others who might see themselves in my experience. Family betrayal leaves wounds that take time to heal, but that healing is possible. If my journey resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What family betrayal have you witnessed or experienced, and how did you find the strength to move forward? Please share, like, and subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories of overcoming family manipulation and finding justice. Your support helps this channel reach others who might be feeling alone in similar situations. Remember, the first step toward reclaiming your power is recognizing when it's been taken from you. Thank you for listening to my story of how I transformed from a controlled wife to a woman helping others find their freedom.